All right. What is up, everybody? Joshua Smith here, joined by my good friend, personal health and fitness mentor, and business partner, Jim Brown. Jim, what's up, brother?
Good to be here, man. Happy New Year, right?
Yeah, Happy New
2026.
Year, dude. It's crazy. It's already 2026, man. It's
I
crazy to
know,
think
man.
about, isn't it?
It's hard to believe.
Yeah. So, all right,
The
dude.
year of the
So,
peptide.
what's that?
The year of the peptide, right?
Yeah, man, you got me going down some crazy. And when I say this, like, and it's in a good way, but man, I haven't been this excited to research and study, and I can't tell you how long.
Yeah.
It's such a fascinating world. Yeah, I'm listening to a doctor the other day, and they're like, "There's over 300,000, quote unquote peptide, chains in the body that have been identified," but they're like, "We only know what 7,000 of them actually are." And then there's what, like a couple hundred, like actual synthetic peptides for those, and just thinking of the power of the peptides that exist now, it's like as this advances, dude, it's like what the thinking about what's possible, dude. It's just mind blowing.
I can't believe I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but there's guys now who are testing your genes. I think we did last week, testing your genes and seeing supposedly if you had something like epigenetically that was turned on that you don't want to be turned on, that was going to lead to a disease or whatever. Then they can identify that, synthesize a peptide to then turn that signal off or to turn that gene off. And I was a little bit, I'm like, well, how long do you have to take it forever? And they're like, no, sometimes once, sometimes three times, sometimes this. And I don't know if they know for sure yet, but I think that's where it's headed eventually, is to where you're going you'll have genomic testing, and then you'll be able to turn on or turn off specific genes with peptides. So yeah, I think it's going to, as long as, this country allows it and the research and all that, I think we're headed for some really cool stuff, man.
Yeah, 100%. All right, guys, before we jump in, just to give the disclaimer so we don't get any strikes or this video taken down, this is not medical advice. We're not intending any of this to be deemed as medical advice. Anything that you take, anything that you inject into your body, make sure that you're seeking your own professional medical advice. We're just two dudes here talking on the internet. All right, dude, so I wanted to ask you, I know that, and we've talked about this a lot in the podcast before, but you're a big fan of carb cycling. If we want to maximize, muscle gain at the same time staying lean, the benefits of carb cycling, which is I also know why you personally prefer taking Retatrutide, one injection weekly versus, you hear so many that are microdosing this, split up into 2, 3 injections a week, but when you take it once a week, just with how the peptide works in our system, it kind of mimics and allows you to, you know, carb cycle, along with that. So I wanted to ask you about how do you personally kind of time the two out with your carb cycling and that, 7 days of what's taking place when you're taking Retta.
Yeah, so when you do that and you're taking Retta just once a week, that first 2, 3, 4 days, if you're taking a real effective dose, you're trying to get some body fat off. Yeah, your appetite's going to be non-existent, right? And so in that period of time, it's probably okay to eat fewer calories, being a bit of a larger deficit. But then if you keep doing that 7 days a week, month on month, you're going to lose some muscle. It doesn't matter if you're eating protein and training hard, you're going to have to use you need some carbohydrates. And especially on Retatrutide, you're going to have to eat more carbohydrates than any other of the GLPs, in my opinion, to one, energize yourself, have any type of glycogen stores for muscle and recovery. And Retta makes that whole thing more efficient anyway. So you do want to eat more carbs to begin with than on any of the other GLPs. So that being said, if you're going to take that once a week dose or that once a week larger bolus, and your appetite is crushed for 3, 4 days, that's cool. Eat your protein, get a little bit of fat, eat the carbs that you can, and be in a stronger deficit. And then the days where it starts to come back, or if I'm dosed perfectly, then I'll start to get hunger, or hunger will break through after my workout or when I first wake up. There'll be these pings that come through, and I take advantage of those. And so those are the days where I'll up my calories and I'll try to attempt to do a glycogen loading, which is, again, it's a little bit more difficult on Retta, but you can do it. You just have to eat enough, or incorporate simple sugars, juices, things like that.
So then, like when I used to I used to follow Dr. Hatfield's, Dr. Squat, his zigzag diet, and that was okay, figure out what maintenance calories are. And then essentially a 40-40-20. So 40% protein, 40% carbohydrates, 20%, good healthy fats. So yeah, 3 days at maintenance, then 3 days, 30% below maintenance, and then 3 days, 30% above maintenance. So always kept your body adjusting. And as you're dropping weight, obviously to adjust that, but that was a 9 day cycle. So with this, and just correct me if I'm getting anything wrong with how you do this and how you recommend it is, okay, for those first 3 days where that hunger signals, kind of hammered where you're not hungry, those are your lower carb days. And then
Yeah.
then you have 4 days where you're kind of slowly titrating up, but probably that 6 day where you're freaking getting pretty hungry again, that's going to be your really once a week heavy carb day.
Yeah, I mean, roughly that's how I try to structure it, and it seems to be working really well. We have a couple people doing that. It's still difficult to really load muscle glycogen on Retatrutide. It doesn't matter how much you eat. It's kind of strange, and that there's a whole nother discussion with the use of exogenous insulin with that really if you're that advanced, it's amazing to do those to combine those, but that's not really the what we're going to talk about in this podcast. But to do that, yeah, it would be just like the carb cycling. You have low days, you have medium days, you have high days. Instead of doing the low days on non-training days, the medium days on training days, and then one high day to reload, we're just kind of running that up as the hunger comes back on the retatrutide. So low days, medium days, and then at least one high day to try to load some muscle glycogen. When you take the next shot, then hopefully, if you've done it correctly, you have enough glycogen to get you through the next 3-4 days of training and not be exhausted. And that's probably one of the biggest problems with training and trying to gain muscle and trying to stay full and trying to maintain muscle on Reta. It's very difficult to load glycogen. Now you can use carbohydrates. You can eat, I have to eat a lot of carbohydrates, but my body's using them better than they ever have or have
Okay.
in years. But it is difficult to load glycogen. So I don't think you're going to get there to that feeling without it. Like if you're just carb cycling on that diet that we have and we use, you're never going to get that full on glycogen, but you can get pretty close. And I think that's the best way to maintain and gain at that point. You still could, but definitely maintain the muscle that you have.
Yeah, because of my understanding, especially like with you and I on Retta and Mots-C, it's like, dude, like, I mean, your body, I mean, it's utilizing the carbohydrates so damn efficiently and effectively. Like, you need those carbs. So, like, I've switched much more from, I've tried to get my, still good and good, healthy amount of, I mean, I'll still eat eggs, and avocado here and there. Like, so I'm eating healthy, unsaturated fats, but instead of eating ground beef, I'm back to chicken, rice, you know, um, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you need some freaking carbs.
You need the carbs, man. You have to have. I'm eating. I can't even believe how many carbs I have to eat. It's ridiculous, but that's how it was in my 20s and 30s. I had to hammer carbs to do anything. And I think as, whatever happened, age and, I stopped doing contests, I stopped getting into single digit body fat and having that insulin reset, just didn't use them as efficiently. And anyway, it's back to that. And yeah, I have to eat way more carbs than I ever have,
Now
to try to
speaking
train and low glycogen.
now speaking of this though, just because I don't want to misspeak or give the wrong idea here. Okay, if somebody is like, okay, rewind the clocks, 15, 20 years ago when I was almost 300 pounds, morbidly obese. Wasn't training hard. I was eating $30 worth of Taco Bell every day. And, okay, when you're metabolically broken, that scenario and situation might be different than what we're talking about here today. We're talking,
Yeah. Well, and similar. Yes and no. So you may not want to load up to try to load glycogen in that case, but I have all my clients that were started big. I had three or four of them that were over 300 pounds, and they're all under 200, and they're all maintaining, doing all that. But I even in those scenarios, I had them switch from heavy fat calories to carbohydrates. And in doing so, you get to eat more, you have more energy typically, and it's more effective. You're in a bigger deficit. And so that little hand guide that I wrote, a couple years ago about diet and GLPs, same thing, man. It's high protein, moderate fat, and moderate carbs. Moderate to low fat, and the rest of the calories is from carbs. And I don't think it matters. If you're on Reta, I think you need the carbohydrates. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that take calories away from protein, but take calories away from fat to get there for sure. I still think that's a good plan. Now, I don't know about the days of eating higher carbs to try to reload your glycogen. I don't know if you need it, especially if you have a bunch of body fat on. We're talking about the guys that, probably 15% or lower and trying to maintain have significant amount of muscle and trying to keep it.
Yeah, and this might be a stupid question, but let's just say you're doing a very low amount, right? So like do you know Mark Low, is it Lowbiner from Tiger Fitness? I'm listening to a podcast of his, and he's because he wanted to just get the health benefits out of it, wasn't looking to suppress hunger. So he's like, dude, he was doing like, I think he said on his podcast, 0.25 milligrams a week.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, my labs, it was insane how quickly his labs, like everything improved. Now that's not enough to maybe spike that hunger signal, you know. But even if you are on a low dose, like, is it still doing the things that it does? It's just not shutting off that hunger signal.
Yeah. So for most of the things that we're seeing, like clinical use of GLPs, that I'm seeing in cardiology is at zero point 0.5 milligrams a week. And that's not really enough to notice body fat changes. Like these patients aren't dropping weight, hunger isn't suppressed. And some of them it is, but it's enough to change labs and incur changes, with atherosclerotic plaque and in combination with other drugs. But that's a one thing. And so that's thought to be due to the inflammation. They think not really sure, but yeah, that I think that the health benefit, and that's kind of what we talked about before. Like even if I wasn't trying to cut body fat or whatever, I'm resetting, I'm still going to take 0.5 milligrams a week just because of the health benefits. And do I think that that's enough to maybe improve insulin sensitivity? I think so. Yeah. I mean, not as profound as, when you're hammering it, but yeah, I think it does.
Dude, so when you look at like what's it, Eli Lilly that created Retta, and in their studies, dude, or their clinical trials, they start them off at what, 12 and a half milligrams a week.
Hammering people, man.
Dude, I
Yeah.
can't even fathom, dude. Like I don't know if I'm gonna, I mean, maybe at some point when I'm on it for a long enough period of time, but dude, like I'm at 2 milligrams a week right now. And now my hunger isn't completely shot, but I'm like, I'm scared to go above this, dude, because it's already at that point where I'm freaking stuffed by the time I get done with my meal, and
Yeah.
I'm not that hungry when I'm having to eat the next meal. Like I can easily go 5, 6 hours between meals right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if they started what the whole, I didn't read all the dosages that they were doing. I just read the results. But I mean, that's pretty typical. When they start you on Ozempic, you start out and by month 4, you're doing fucking 5x, 6x of what you were doing. And they don't want you to stop. They want you to keep going. And I personally think that's when all the side effects, the massive side effects, some of the crazy shit that we're hearing about, I think that's where we enter that zone when you're doing these high dosages. For Retta, myself and anybody that I'm kind of counseling or is trying to listen to me, if you're getting over 6, 8 milligrams a week, I think you need to ramp back down. I need you to take a break, reset. Um, Depends where you're at with your goals, but I don't like to go that high. I don't think you need to. I think you can reset, take 3, 4 weeks off and then go back at it and still have an effective dose far below that. But you know,
Yeah.
we're not making money selling it, so
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you look at Big Pharma's model, it's reoccurring. They want you on that nonstop system, and with peptides, and I don't know if it's all peptides, but it's like eventually those receptor sites develop a resistance. So
yeah.
that's
I
why you
mean,
got to cycle on and off, or way lower the dose. And I don't know if lowering it is enough, or you've got to come completely off for a period of time to reset those receptor sites. But eventually, you develop that resistance, correct?
yeah, and yeah, whatever it is. But we've reset it a couple times. We've had plenty of people that did that. It's it does take a long time to go completely back to where you were, but you can take a couple weeks off, maybe a month, refeed, kind of take a break, mental break as well, not put on a lot of fat, because hopefully you're still eating like you're supposed to be eating, except with the hunger signal coming back, and then go back on and you're at a much lower dosage. I just think that's a way better, way more effective strategy. Because
Yeah, and
you'll get up to, I don't know, you can get up to 12, 20, I don't know, 30 milligrams. I don't know. I'm sure there's people doing that. Maybe
yeah,
not on Retta, but definitely on Ozempic and Tirzepatide.
yep, crazy dude. So then, okay, so when it comes to the, peptide receptor resistance, does that differentiate from your experience peptide peptide by peptide? And the reason why I'm asking is, like in a perfect world, I'd want to be taking a very low dose, let's just say, half a milligram a week of Retta, you know, half a milligram maybe daily of Mots-C, and then half a milligram a day of Glow, because I'm like, hey man, those are good, at least in my own mind, those are like the three forever peptides. And I'm as I go, going through my own experiment, I might add some to that. But at least as of right now, I'm like, it's kind of like testosterone. Yeah, right. Lower level of testosterone, but I plan on taking that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Is that something that with certain peptides can be done to your knowledge base, or do all of them at some point need to be cycled off to reset the receptor sensitivity?
Well, the one good thing that is working in our favor is peptides don't last a long time in your bloodstream. So they're kind of in and out. So they're in, they bind to the receptors, and then they degrade and they're out. And so that's different than, say, taking a shot of, testosterone and anthate, where it's kind of a slow release then in your system for, I don't know, 14, 16 days, whatever it is. So it's a constant supply in your bloodstream. Now there's spikes in there, but literally you have a constant supply of testosterone in your bloodstream. That would have a tendency to downgrade receptors greater than just an in and out. So when you take a shot of whatever, let's just say, I don't know for sure what the half-life is, but I'll use insulin. I used insulin pre-workout for, I don't know, probably 5 years, pretty much consistently. And the same dose that I started with was the same dose that I used the whole time because it didn't downgrade receptors a lot. I wasn't using a lot and it was in and out. And actually, there's some studies that, make you more sensitive to insulin if you're using exogenous insulin. But the point is that it goes in your bloodstream really quick. It does what it's supposed to do, and then it's gone. And so it doesn't hang around forever. So I don't think the receptor downgrade is that profound. But on the Retatrutide, it could be, you're getting kind of a resistance to the lepidin. You're kind of getting a resistance to ghrelin. I don't know for sure. I'm not sure why that has to keep going up and up, but specifically, but I think peptides are a little bit different.
Yeah.
For instance, I'm on week 12 now with Mots, and I'm using the same dose that I started with, and I still feel it. So I don't know that I have to go up. I'm certainly not going to go up just to go up. I'm going to go up if I have to. And that's one of those too. If I take 3 days off of it and go back on, I get jammed with it. It's like, oh shit, that's why I'm taking it. And now I feel it again. Or, it kind of creeps up on you and you build kind of the norm. I don't think that's receptor downgrade. I think you're just used to the energy and the way it feels. And then you go off of it for a few days and you go back on and you say, oh, now you remember what that was. So I don't know, man. I don't know. We're the experiment. I'm not
Yeah.
really sure. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. And what would be the signal to know that you develop that resistance? Just not feeling it anymore, or I've heard others
Yeah,
say like, oh, you'll notice because you'll start retaining some water. Like and that might differentiate per peptide, but
yeah, I think it would be different for peptide, but if we go through the ones that you can feel like daily that you feel, yeah, the Mots-C, I haven't built a resistance to it yet. I haven't seen what I would consider a downgrade, but if I was taking it and I was felt great, I definitely felt it. I knew it was the Mots, and then all of a sudden I keep taking it and nothing happens. I go off of it, I go back on it, I don't feel it. I up the dose, maybe double the dose, whatever, and then feel it again. Okay, maybe that would be a point where, all right, maybe something's happening where I'm building a resistance to it. And at that point, I would plan a certain time off to try to kind of reset and go back to where I was, rather than keep upping and upping and upping.
so and just to give everybody, I told everybody I give you an update with my experience. So, okay, 2 full weeks now in Retta. Um, First week I was at 1 milligram, then I bumped up to 2 milligrams. And then I'm gonna, at least for some time, I'm gonna stay there. If not, maybe go back down to a milligram. I don't know yet. I'm kind of waiting to see how I feel, but I definitely I don't want to experience more of that hunger because just what I said before. Yeah, right. It's already getting hard to like I'm just full, dude, and it's you know yeah, it's great, but it's like, man, I hate the having to force feed myself, you know. So, but with that, okay, my strength's still going up, so I'm not losing strength. I've lost 8 pounds. Now, for my personal situation, because I just can't help myself, but I had taken some time off working out, dieting, so I got my dad bod back. I, probably gained 15 pounds of fat, lost 15 pounds of muscle. I don't really know. Wasn't doing body scans. So when I started Red, I used that as a motivation to, okay, I'm going to get my shit together. So I'm doing 10-minute walks after every meal, resistance training 90 minutes to 2 hours every day, getting in 10 to 20,000 steps a day. My diet's super clean. But then if you look at my wife, now she would start off at half a milligram a week. She's at a milligram a week now for a second week. And she's, planning on staying there. Now she hasn't changed a thing. Her training hasn't changed because she, doesn't train I mean, she trains, but once, twice a week, whatever. But nothing's changed. And she's down 5 pounds. Just crazy, dude. And from her, what she's saying is that she just doesn't have the cravings at all to snack. Like she still gets hungry,
Yeah.
but she has zero cravings to go out there and snack. Like normally she likes to snack and I'll say for me, like, dude, the hardest part always when I would, at least initially till I got used to it, when it came from a diet perspective, and I'm sure everybody's got their foods, but for me, it's always chips and salsa. It's like I miss chips and salsa and I just want to crush it up. Dude, every time I open the door and I see it right there in the fridge, I have
Like,
zero cravings for it. I
yeah,
have no cravings to eat ice cream. I have no cravings to it's just been that so much easier, just to freaking eat, chicken,
yeah,
pear, rice, right? The kind of boring stuff because I don't have the desire to eat the bullshit.
yeah. I think that's the biggest thing when you're not in. You don't have to crush it. You don't have to be on a dose to where it just crushes your appetite. But the thing that universally, I mean, people say is like, yeah, I don't feel like snacking. And when I'm on a large enough dose, I don't crave coffee. I don't want to drink coffee at all, which is really weird because I
Yeah.
fucking love coffee. But it's strange. Just like I don't want it. I don't think about it. Kind of makes me sick to think about. And it's weird how it changes your behavior like that. I've heard some people say that it had that effect on tobacco use. I heard some people say that with alcohol. Um, and it's really interesting and it's very interesting. I think it's a bit like, again, you don't need to hear it again from me, but it's the most amazing tool that we've ever had access to so far.
Yeah, I was listening to a doctor the other day that was saying that he even has patients that like they broke their porn addictions by being on it. That's not why they
Yeah,
got on it, but it's just like it does
yeah.
something to that kind of like that obsessive compulsive. There's something happening there.
Yeah,
Um, all right, dude. So next question I have for you is about glow, right?
yeah,
Because you got two options, right? Like you can go get your BPC 157, TB 500, your copper, get them separately, take them separately, or like where we get our stuff from biovitalis.org. You can buy them separately, but they also sell it where it's mixed. It's called Glow. If anybody's looking at that, but there's debates out there that you shouldn't mix these three peptides because the copper is so whatever, something with that, with the chemicals, they don't mix well together, and the copper will then eliminate the effectiveness of TB 500, and the BPC. I know that you've done them separately and you've done them mixed. I've only done them mixed, and I'm feeling great, dude. Like I've never really had any major injuries, but I'll tell you, dude, for years now, I haven't been able to do straight barbell bicep curls. I've always had to use
yeah.
the camber bar because it would hurt my left elbow. Now, dude, I'm fucking just racking
Really?
out barbell curls, dude. Like I have no pain anywhere. My wife is like,
Wow.
hey, she's like when she's brushing her hair, because I was like, hey,
Yeah.
this might help, hair, skin. I'm, walking through the benefits. And she's like, normally when I get done brushing my hair, I just have clumps of hair in the hairbrush. She's like, I have none now. So I
Wow.
feel maybe it's placebo. I don't know, but
Yeah.
my elbow doesn't hurt, but I've never taken them separately. So with your expertise, experience, is there anything to that?
Well, initially I bought into when my shoulders were really fucked up, and I said, okay, I'm just going to try this long term, right? Because that's the only way. I'd never tried it. And previously, just to fill you back in again, the BPC and the TB5 I used for years, man. But I only used it when I was hurt or had a major, like a muscle tear, you know, tendon ligament damage that was really bad. And I would use large amounts all around that to try to come back faster and do that. And I can't tell you that it really did anything. So this last time with my shoulders were so fucked, I was like, okay, well, everybody's people that I trust, said that there is something to it. You just stay on it longer, try a longer run. Okay. So that's when I was doing it. And I told you about 5, 6 weeks in, that's when everything started to really, oh my God, this doesn't hurt anymore. This is improving so fast. My back doesn't ache. I don't have these aches and pains. At that point, I was doing stuff separately because I was doing the BPC and the copper. I'd mix it in one syringe, do it at together and then daily. And then I would do the TB5 at a large dose, like I think I was doing 5 milligrams once every 5 days as a bolus. And there's some data that suggests that's a better way to do it if you have, what I call massive stuff to fix. That would be the easy way to think about it. That seemed to work fine. And then I moved to the Glow product and doing that, and it's still a pretty good dose, doing that daily. And it still seems to be working fine. So I don't know, it would be interesting if somebody did an experiment to see if that degraded in solution faster than not. But I don't think mixing it in the syringe and injecting at the same time is doing anything wrong. I don't think you're doing anything wrong. But you know, there's a lot of testing that we could do to do that. But I don't think anybody's going to inject peptides and then take blood samples and see if you would have to do a bunch of tests like that. But I don't see that it's cutting the effectiveness at all. And there's plenty of people out there that use the Glow and Clo products combined that are raving about them. So I don't know, to be determined. You know,
Yeah, because it's the people that I've heard talk about it where it's not as effective, they also like own peptide companies, and I'm like, well, if I go get the Glow blend, it seems to be more economical than
right,
if I buy them separately. So I'm like, well, is this really legit and true? Or is this, yeah, they probably make more money when they're selling them separately. And then, like you said, okay, like, yeah, dude, if you got a torn rotator cuff or like when you were repairing from your bicep tear, it's like, okay, there
yeah,
might be a reason to take them separately. But like for injury
right,
prevention, like what for most of us are using this for, and look, and look, it wasn't, I didn't run the test, so I have no way of knowing, but, you know, it, I found online of others that have done that, like right where they've mixed it, they've checked, had it tested day one,
right.
had it tested like a week, 1 week, 2 weeks. I mean, all up like 60 days, and it still kept the what's it, efficacy? Is that the right word?
Well, all the peptides were still intact,
Yeah.
right? Not denatured. And, I have a chemistry background. I have a chemistry degree, but that doesn't mean I know everything. So I use ChatGPT and prompted it correctly. Like you're a senior chemical engineer, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And do you think that the copper is going to degrade the other peptides in solution? And the answer is no. So I don't know, man. Just it'd be nice if a company did that testing and let us all know. But I don't think there's an issue with it. But that's it's up to you guys to decide. I don't know everything, certainly.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it. I didn't see a difference. Now, when I was really going after, the massive injuries, I was doing the BPC multiple times a day, and then I would do that large bolus of TP5 every 5 days. So, in those situations, yeah, separate it. Or, you don't want the sting from the copper. Okay, cool. Do TB and do the TB and the BPC. If you have some light stuff that you're going after, maybe tendonitis, I don't know, maybe you just want to do the TB. Or I'm sorry, maybe you just want to do the BP 157 by itself. So there's still reasons to do it. For me, I like the combination and I like the ease of using it all from one syringe or one from one vial, and it's been working. So until further notice.
Yeah, because it does get kind of, and I get it. Like, okay, like for me, I'm kind of I'm a weird motherfucker, right? Meaning that, like, dude, I like doing all the injections.
Yeah.
Part of my morning routine. I get up, I do them, I enjoy them. So I don't care if I got to inject 5, 10 things.
Yeah, if I thought it cut effectiveness, I'd have no problem. No
Yeah,
problem doing it. Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, but I know for most, it's like, man, having to do, because I mean, there was a point in time, where, I was doing, B12 injections, glutathione injections, amino injections, testosterone. I
Yeah.
had about 6 different things I was doing every day, and yeah, it gets kind of cumbersome. But I know for
Yeah.
most, it's like it'd be nice to, it's more enjoyably lesser. You
Yeah.
know,
Now I
um,
do I do like to separate the peptides that have different functions and kind of go after different things, meaning like the healing class of peptides, the glow blend, I don't have any problem doing together. Right. But I wouldn't mix that with Mots and do it all at the same time because I want the energy, from that Mots gives me. Typically, I'm taking that early in the morning. And then the healing kind of blend that I'm taking once a day now, I take before bed. So I do separate those, if you have I think you have to consider what peptides you're doing and what they're going after and what they're telling you or going after and signaling in the body. And you may not, then you don't want to load 10 different things into a syringe and shoot it all up. I don't know if that makes sense. Um,
yeah, that's a good. Yeah, because okay, so for me, I'm doing them all first thing in the morning. Now, would you
yeah.
recommend to, because like right now, dude, I'm on Retta, Mots-C, Thymosin Alpha 1, and then Glow. And
Yeah.
I get
I
up,
would separate the glow at night. I would do that
okay.
before bed.
Because I know like with like some of like the secretagogues, like the, supposedly you and I experimented before. I didn't get, and I don't know if it was because it's probably 10 years ago when I experimented with like ipamorelin and maybe, hey,
Yeah.
maybe my GH levels were already naturally high because I was in my early 30s, you know. But I know things like that, timing's really important,
Yeah.
so okay, so switch the glow tonight, but the others are fine. And they're
I
fine
think so.
to, yeah, and to do like I don't put them all in the same I'm doing separate and
Yeah.
but they're all fine to one after
I
the
think
other.
so. Yeah. I think so. You may want, there's some people that would argue with that too. I don't know for sure, but that's what I do. And they seem to be all effective. Yeah.
And then what about Mots-C? Like, okay, do you find empty stomach versus, like I was listening to a doctor the other day who's, like dude gets after it in the gym, he's, 50s but he's like, hey man, I found that like I need some carbohydrates in me before I do my Mots-C injection because like my body needs them.
Well, my typical morning routine is I'll get up and I'm doing the Mots-C injection, and then on the way to the gym, I'm drinking some type of caffeine, probably from an energy drink, and I'm eating a banana. So I don't know. Now I've done it where I'm not, where I haven't hit the carbs before the gym, but typically if I'm doing things right, I wake up fucking starving, and I don't know that I can say that the Mott's makes that worse or better, but I'm always typically, if it's a normal morning, I'm hitting carbohydrates on the way to the gym anyway.
Yeah, because my morning routine is I get up, I eat, but now I gotta, 60 to 90 minutes to let my carbs and whatever digest before I train. So I do
Yeah.
my injections, then I just do a slow walk for like an hour and then I attack the gym. But with these, because it makes sense to me where, okay, if you're trying to maximize, you know, growth hormone release, why it matters with timing for where you're fasted or not fasted. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it kind of makes sense to me as to why people would say that. But these others you found doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay.
In my experience, but again, that's me. Um, that's most of my clients. I haven't heard of anybody, disputing that or saying, "Hey, it didn't work," or "I tried this and it worked better." But we're all different. So I don't know.
So outside of like, are there any that you are testing, planning on testing, going forward in the near future that, we,
Yeah, the SS3 one,
okay.
running through that now. So we're testing that. Let me see. Next on, if I were to say something else other than that, man, maybe epithelion, whatever.
Yeah, that one's
Yeah,
interesting, dude, right? I mean, I'm excited to do the SS31 as well, but from my understanding and all my research on this is, you know, okay, start with Mots-C first, kind of gives the building blocks, then to allow SS31 to do what it's supposed to do. Because, they're doing, even though they're both mitochondrial peptides, they do two kind of different things,
yeah,
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to run, 2 months. Now you've already been on Mots-C for 10 weeks. So I figured for me, I'll run it for 8 weeks, then introduce the SS31 because
right.
again, I haven't tested it, but from what the research I've done with it is that unless you do it that way, SS31 is not going to be able to do its full thing because you didn't do the repair that Mots-C is going to do. It
Yeah.
kind of sets up the SS31. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I don't. I've heard opposing opinions on both.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I'm just now adding this SS31 to see what happens, and I definitely felt it. I definitely feel it. So that's a good sign to me. That's one of those things that I think I should feel, and so I'm going to continue to run it, but I'm running it alongside with mods. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I don't know, but I feel the difference. Now, the other mitochondrial type peptides that I've taken, were hit or miss for me. They didn't, like I said, some of them maybe sweat a little bit more during cardio, but other than that, haven't really noticed a difference. The methylene blue for me was, not so great. But I think if you look at what those do, they are kind of hit and miss. I think the Mots-C and the SS31 are kind of going to affect. They're the type that are going to affect more people, and then the other ones are going to be hit or miss.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. For me, dude, I'm really excited to, and I'm going to butcher the name. So I'm just going to go off of, what it says on biovitalis.org, the CBL. What's it?
yeah,
Cerebrolysin or something like that.
yeah.
Um, that's, I think, the next on my list to,
I'm probably 6 weeks out from doing my first cycle of it, and I still have vivid dreams. Like I'm there and I remember them, like the taste, the smell, everything. Like I'm there, and that's very non like me. I mean, every now and then, but it's very common now that I remember everything. And sharper, a little bit more focus is easier. So I had a really good result from it. That's something that definitely I'm going to run, the 2 cycles per year forever, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, I thought I had a profound effect from it.
Yeah, and for anybody that doesn't know what it is, I mean, it's I guess classified as a nootropic peptide, but do the due diligence I've done on it, man, it's like, man, it regrows gray or can regrow gray matter in the brain, create new brain cells, new neurons, new, what I'm gonna butcher this, but like new, synapse firing in the brain, and I look at this of like, because I mean, I was a freaking pretty raging alcoholic for like 15 years, and then I used to abuse Adderall for, off all that shit now, and I've, over, won the battle with those demons, but I'm like, dude, and all the all-nighters I used to pull for, business, I'm like, okay, I've probably done some damage up here. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So that stuff really excites me, dude.
yeah. Anybody who has dementia or Alzheimer's in the family, as a family history, I think would be really should be interested in looking into that. My grandfather had Alzheimer's, but he also had that was type 3. He had type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's. So he was a very bad diabetic. That's why I'm sure he got it. But that's something that scares the shit out of me. I don't mind dying tomorrow, but living with Alzheimer's, fuck that. No, thank
Yeah.
you. So that's one of the most exciting things that I've seen, that could possibly, keep you away from having that or improve it. Improves TBI. I mean, it's pretty profound stuff. The other thing too, that if you're using BPC, that also does a lot of the same things that you're after too with neuroinflammation. So, and then if you improve your mitochondrial health, that improves the mitochondrial health in your brain as well, glucose uptake, glucose utilization, all that stuff. So, all these things are kind of just mesh over into other areas that we're trying to treat and hopefully prevent or go after or improve. So they all kind of work synergistically, or at least some of them do.
Yeah. Yeah. And if somebody's sitting there thinking about, well, is it harmful to take all these things together? You know, because that was kind of the thing in my mind is like, well, should I just be doing like one at a time? Like, what if I'm doing like
Right.
30 of these at once? Not saying I'm going to do 30 of these at once, but you know, and again, correct me if my thought process on this is wrong, but at least for my little bit of research, when I say a little bit of research, dude, like I was telling you before we hit record button, like I'm like 4 hours a day, shit, like every day, like I'm just obsessed. It's so fascinating to me, but it's, okay, these are going in to do something very specific, you know, um, so it's like, okay, like the peptide essentially is like a very specific lock or a key that you're inserting into a lock that then kicks off that mechanism, so that because they're all identifying for the different lock that they're entering into to kick that mechanism, they don't have that, inner impact that like if I'm on 20 different drugs that might be doing different harms.
That's my understanding. However, like I said, I like to separate just because okay, let's just say you all those things are in your bloodstream at once and they don't interfere or compete for site receptor and all that stuff. But then you have to think, well, what am I turning on? What am I asking myself to do at this point? And if you're taking Mots-C and you're taking something like I don't want to, it's a bad analogy, but Mots-C and the healing peptides, it's almost like a speedball. Well, you're taking speed and then a downer at the same time. I don't want to do that. That's a bad analogy, but just to say, I don't think there's going to be a lot of repair going on when I'm headed to the gym. I think more repair is going to be going on when, I'm done with the gym, I'm relaxing, and I'm start to go into, bedtime's close. That's my thought. Now maybe there's, some reason why you would take copper earlier in the day when you have when you're taking your collagen and vitamin C and zinc on board. I don't know. But I would just think of some of the things that you're doing. If it's an energy type of driving peptide, I wouldn't take those with the healing stuff, to say. But I think you're right that you could have 20 of those floating around in your bloodstream and they're all going to different sites. And as long as they're not competing with those sites, sure, they can be. But then I would think, what am I trying to do here? And separate the peptides based on that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, dude, with the healing, like try and time it out based on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right? So that makes total sense because it's like, yeah, dude, like you're recovering while you're sleeping. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna switch to that immediately.
And the other thing I don't like, I'll talk to guys that are like, yeah, I'm going to try Mots-C and SS31 and this and this and this and SOUP and five things. Like, okay, have you ever run those all separately? Well, no. Okay, fuck, you're going to try five new things at once? The fuck is that? So now you're going to, if it works and you like it, you're going to buy all five and continue to run all five forever? Like you don't know which one did what. So I'm really a fan of trying these things separately and see if you have an effect. And then if you do have an effect, how little of a dose can you get away with to have that effect? If it's not enough, how much do you have to ramp it up to get there? So these are just like tools, right? So if you grab 8 tools and try to use them all at the same time to, get I don't know, a screw off of your door or trying to work on your car, it doesn't make any sense, man. You don't know what the fuck you're doing with them. But if you know, like, hey, I've used this tool, I know what it does, I know what the dosage is, great. I'm going to use it for that. Now, that doesn't mean that once you establish these, you can't try to mix them together and see if they work synergistically. But goddamn, at least establish a baseline with them so that you can say, yeah, that really worked for me. Or hey, I took Mott's, I took it this way, I took it this way, I upped the dose, I did this, and I didn't feel shit. Okay, great. Maybe that's not for you. Let's try something else. Okay, well, I tried this by itself and it worked. Okay, great. Now, if you would have bought them and took them together, you wouldn't have known that. So I don't like this combination, first time use, combination of 8 different things. You don't know what the fuck any of them are doing solo. So I do recommend that people try things solo first to try to see. Now the glow blend, okay, I get, but still separate those out and see if you notice a difference with them. You know,
It's
that's
so
just best
hard.
practice. Oh, I know.
It's so hard, dude. Like I've been trying, but and I'm kind of, went against that too, where it's like, okay, yeah, I did Redder first because I just want to see what it felt like, but then I
Yeah,
introduced, now the thymosin alpha one, that's just, well, I'm gonna
a
do
little
it
bit different.
eight
Yeah, you're not
weeks and
gonna.
then only twice a
Yeah,
year just for immune,
yeah.
Um, I'm really excited for that one too with my wife with the thyroid stuff just to see, it'd
Oh,
be
dude,
really interesting.
that's another one. Yeah, all these are so cool. They're so cool. But
Yeah.
my first experience with that, everybody was sick. I took it and I didn't get sick. And so, all right, every time I go to a company meeting, every time I, get run down or kid coughs in my face, I'm I'm on it. And I do like the preventative way of using it too, a couple times a year, just to get your immune system back in working order and in tip top shape. But yeah, that's there's a lot of potential with that one too. It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was my thought, you know, is could run it twice a year, like a milligram a day, run through what 2 bottles that lasts, like it's
Yeah,
like 6 to 8 weeks, just, twice a year just to kind of reset and reboost that immune
yeah,
system, just
yeah.
to hope, because like to me, it's just like best way to heal sickness is not get sick in the first place, dude.
100%. And you still got kids that are going to school, so they're bringing home something every other fucking week. They just do.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. I
Well, and it
think
was
that's
your post that got me to do it, right? Was not just the Substack. The Substack got me interested, so I ordered some, but I wasn't planning because I was like, hey, well, let me run Retta, Mots-C, and then Glow for a little while first. But then you did a post that was like something about kids are getting ready to go back to school, like start,
yeah,
and I was like, well, shit, man, it's probably a good time to do it because it's also cold and flu season.
100%. Yeah, if you're going to use it, this is the time to use it for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, this is peak season.
Yeah. So I know we're going long on time. So last question here, unless there's anything else you want to jam on, but I mean, to my understanding, with most of this, maybe outside the GLPs, I don't know, but is that because with the mechanism of how peptides work, because most of us think that okay, if this amount is good, adding more is going to be better, but it's like your body has built-in governors on this stuff where if you're taking more than is necessary, like you're really just pissing away money. It's not actually being more effective in the body.
Yeah, a couple things there. Just the way in that, peptides have a pretty short half-life, so they'll get in your bloodstream. They're going to float around. They're going to find the receptor sites, and then eventually, in not a long period of time, they're either going to denature, which means they're not going to fit in the key that they're supposed to fit into, like they were supposed to, and or they get cleaved, they get cut, kidneys take them out, whatever. So they don't last for a long time, a long period of time. So if you wanted to do something, I'll use the CJ and ipamorelin combination. Before, like I didn't feel anything from that. And so I upped the dose that I was taking once a day or whatever it was. Wasn't working. Okay. So what's the next thing to do? Well, we'll increase frequency. So if these things are in your bloodstream just for a short period of time, jacking up the dose doesn't particularly make a lot of sense, but increasing the frequency that you're introducing into the bloodstream does. And so the only time that I got anything out of that combination is doing it like 8 times a day. That was the only time that I could equate it to say, hey, this kind of feels like, do I use a growth hormone? And I think that was the reason. It's just it's such a short half-life. Increasing and taking a large dose doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like if I think that's another strategy, like for Mots, if you wanted to, if you're taking a massive dose of Mots for energy to feel it, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense rather than taking it multiple times. I don't know, but that's
Yeah.
kind of my thought on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy, dude. Because then it like what kind of a lifestyle when you're having to inject 8 times throughout the day? It's like shit. What do you got? Are you just carrying a cooler around at work?
Yeah, I've had at that time, yeah, I'm not as in the car as much as I was, but during that time, yeah, 5 days a week I'm in the car, lived out of my car, all day in sales, and I wouldn't leave the house without my blue cooler that had fucking chicken and rice and shit in it, and loaded up with whatever. Had my dose of insulin in there for when I went to the gym, carbs, a shake, everything. Yeah, you just fucking live with it, walking around with you know preloaded pins in your cooler, you
Yeah.
know. But
Oh
anyway,
yeah. All right, man. Well, anything else before we jam out?
I think that's it for this week, man. We covered a lot.
And I know last week I posted the article that you wrote on your Substack for thymosin alpha 1 that had like, the different doses for, you know, um protocols based on what they're looking for and whatnot. Where do people find your Substack? Or like, what's the name
I
of the Substack? Or can I just get the
let's
link
just
for? Okay.
let's put the link. I don't even
Yeah.
know.
Because it's a lot of good shit, dude, right?
Yeah,
For anybody that's watching or listening, because again, this is a very complicated space. I'm just going from when I say new to this, look, I've been experimenting with peptides for, I don't know, 10 years. You know, some of them I didn't know were peptides, so I didn't know that. I didn't know what the hell they were. I was just, doctor was
you're just
telling me to
taking
take
them.
them. I was just taking
Yeah,
them, but now that I'm trying to gain my expertise, man, it is such a noisy, loud, confusing world. Everything contradicts, and then you got, whether it's from doctors or the bros, it's like, dude, it is so fucking noisy.
yeah,
So that's why I love referencing your Substack because it's such a great source. But then what I appreciate about it too is it breaks it down in ways that I can understand. Yeah, you break down the science, but it's like, okay, it's not so over my head. Like, when I'm trying to go some of these other sources, like it's like
yeah.
to get through an article, like I got to do 30 out or 30 minutes of Googling to figure out what these words even mean.
Yeah, I did. Early on, I took some user feedback from the guys on Twitter, and people wanted it not as deep a dives in full on, physiology. So I try to back it off a little bit and make it more understandable for everybody. And then I try to pull from, users out there in the community and kind of get a feel for how people are using it. And then these are all things that I personally used. I don't like to write about shit that I haven't tried myself. And so then I'll always put in my kind of opinion and my usage and how I used it and what I got out of it in those. But yeah, I've been doing quite a bit of those lately, and people seem to find them helpful. So we'll continue doing them.
Cool. So everybody that's watching or listening, I'll have a link below. Also going to have two other links below. One, because one of the most common questions that we get is where do you guys get your peptides from? Because again, um, there's just a lot of shit out there. Yeah, right. So biovitalis.org, there'll be a link there. And the cool thing that I like about that company is like you can go in there, it's got a write up of everything, says what they are. Sometimes like for me it took a little bit because I think like they call Retatrutide what like 3R or something,
3G.
or 3G, but you can figure it out, right? So as you go in there, but then they also have all the lab results, lab tests, that shows purification, tests for, like the mold and metal, because in the peptide world, like there's no regulation. So you never know if you're getting legit shit. So I have
They
a whole,
even they even tested their Bacto water that they got. They even tested that for sterility. I've never seen anybody do that. Now they have the branded Hospira brand Bacto water as well, but then they have a house brand of Bacto Sterratic water, and they even tested that for purity. Haven't seen that before. So
yeah,
committed
because
to,
yeah, thinking
yeah,
about
right.
that, like I just went and bought my backwater on Amazon, but it's like, it says this backwater,
Good
but how do I
luck.
even know?
Yeah. Do you
I
know
didn't
it's
even,
sterile? I don't know.
yeah, I'm hoping it is. I didn't even think
I know,
about
me
that.
too. Yep.
So make sure to start buying my backwater from Biolitalis. But there'll be a link for that, and then also a link for forgedlife.com, which is Jim's amazing formulation of our amazing nootropic. So if you're looking for more focus, mental energy, lesser eye strain throughout the day, I highly encourage you guys to check out that product as well. Truly appreciate you guys watching, listening. As always, Jim, man, appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
All right, you guys, we'll see you next time. Peace.